Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, John Travolta, JMels24, Unamento, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and G+, so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Okay. So this is a Scientific American to being continued so that we could break down what they're trying to say. And here at this part, they were winning those arguments with people who were coming in and arrogantly assuming that they could answer everything. Now, this is in reference to ballers coming in without doing their homework and taking on flat earthers, and they were getting, their arguments overcome. Let me continue. And in winning those arguments, they were really converting even more people who really believed in it. And so you had this kind of effect where it was sort of spiral out of control a little bit. But I think it wasn't viral in the way that in 2013 as is in the way that it is in 2016, 2017. And I think part of that is because of the esoteric off-the-wall version proofs can be quite complicated to get your head around. So for example, if you have a disk version, the world and the infinite plane version, both models suffer from the inability to explain gravity. You don't have a spherical mass, you don't have central mass, you don't have central point pulling it all to one point. So before we answer that, let me finish this next one. So it's very difficult to explain gravity in either one of these models. But these people who were doing kind of esoteric arguments were saying, well, what is gravity? Gravity is an accelerant, falls toward the ground. I think 9.8 meters per second squared accelerates downwards. They said that this is identical to a world in which the ground accelerates upwards to meet you. And so when you let go of something, it isn't that it's accelerating downwards, it is that the ground's actually accelerating up to meet it. Any comments before we move on to where he ties it to relativity?
That's brilliant.
I was about to say, that sounds like a Flat Earth Society argument he's listening to, doesn't it?
They've set up a false dichotomy with a reification fallacy, two reification fallacies for Flat Earth. So saying neither model explains what an overcome for a problem in a heliocentric model, gravity. Why would either of them need to? Why would we need to assert any model? Why would you put these two models up against each other in false dichotomy? It's all fallacious on many, many different fronts.
Yeah. And also,
hello everyone.
Hey, Brian.
Can I ask a question before you go on, Tent?
Yeah, please.
Very quick, just came in. Is this some kind of an article about flat Earth where they're asserting that a flat Earth goes up the way?
We're not there yet, Brian, but this is Scientific
Ooh.
American, and I think what you're picking up on is, yes, it sounds very Flat Earth Society-esque, and that was what John also pointed out. But no, this is Scientific American.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's in the Master D and link right after Nathan's show link today, so you can see the whole thing there. So moving on. Oh, go on,
Hold on
John.
a second. What I was saying though is it seems like Scientific America cited the Flat Earth Society for these claims.
Well, we're going to, it does seem that way because we understand where the claims are coming from, but we'll see if that ties in. And then also, they assume gravity without proving it. As Nathan said, it's fallacious in so many ways.
Well, it's worse than that because, as we've pointed out in the past, they're actually trying to make a laugh out of this upward acceleration thing when it's their model since 107 years ago.
Right, exactly. They inserted in. So let's finish that off. So the guy, because this is a transcript of a show, SM says, so he asked a question after what I just read. So it's a form of relativity. And then MM, the guy who says everything about it, says, this is exactly where they come to. So people would then say, well, if it's the ground is the earth is, an infinite plane in all directions that bisects reality and is accelerating upward 9.8 meters per second squared and always has been since the dawn of time, you'd hit a problem, which would be the speed of light. You can't go fast, the speed of light, so people don't have a gotcha for this. And so the people who were putting forth esoteric, off-the-wall, trollish arguments would say, that's a mouthful, well, look at Einstein's theory of relativity. As you approach light speed, time itself slows down, and the maths in their head works back out again. So yes, we're getting quicker, but time is getting slower, and we can account for gravity in that way. And that's quite a complicated idea. I can barely read out without laughing at this point. And that's quite a complicated idea to get your head around. And so I think the fact that these people were winning arguments, meaning flat earthers, was converting some people to movement, but the way in which they were winning them were keeping people away from the movement because they were quite complex ideas. You couldn't stick them on the meme as you can these days. Here's a picture of the Earth. You couldn't explain all that stuff about science, the relativity proven gravity and infinite plane version of the world. Any comments?
He's making apologies for the, as I said earlier, the failures in the heliocentric model are explained by non-phenomena based explanations for forces that don't exist. And he's making apologies for that while simultaneously saying that the flat earthers have got no explanation for it. Like, we don't require one. And inserting this nonsense about Earth flying up at 9.80 meters per second, well, who's saying that other than the Flat Earth Society? Nobody. We wouldn't need to. There's no necessity to claim that. Ugh, God, it begins.
Brian?
Yeah, lots of people are saying it. Brian Cox, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Sabine Hasselfelder, Eric Verlinder, I think, they're all saying it. That the Earth is moving up the way at 9.81 meters per second squared. It's just that they're claiming the Earth isn't flat.
Right.
But they're still saying that.
Yes, with Einstein's gravity. Correct. It's just a juxtaposition between the gravity they need as apologetics worked into the controlled opposition narrative of flat Earth, so that we can argue about how gravity works on a flat Earth, like Vsauce laid out. It's like, well, we're not claiming it. You are. Why are you claiming it? Well, because you've got bending space-time and mass-attracting mass apologetics for a sphere Earth having to hold people to it. But you've changed your rhetoric, and then you've changed your rhetoric again, and it's all just apologetics for people hanging off antipodal to the position you're standing on a spherical surface. That's all it's apologising for. Well, we don't have that. We don't have that problem. The fact that they do doesn't mean they have to insert it into a model. Well, they do, because it's controlled opposition narrative.
Let me continue. So I think there's a limiting factor going on, and that's why when I first came across the Flat Earth movement, it was probably still pretty small, pretty unknown. I've been given talks about pseudoscience for the last kind of 5 or 6 plus years. I've mentioned that I came across the flat earth movement, and people would always say to me, there's nobody who actually believes that they don't really exist, that people are having fun. So it stayed quite small. And then in 2015 and 2016, a couple of things happened that really ignited a movement. And it was publishing of 2 videos on YouTube, or 2 video series on YouTube. One, I believe, was Eric Dubay, 200 Proofs. The Earth is not a spinning globe. He said spinning here. And the other was Mark Sargent's 14 videos in this Flat Earth Clue series. So now we're going to actually be converting more people. So he's kind of giving his little history. He meshes their arguments and saying that they're ours in what we've read so far. And
Right.
he's just complicating the issue.
I would say that, Mr. Reporter, that is the most insanely idiotic thing I've ever heard. At no point in your response were you anything close to anything that could be considered a coherent thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Beautiful.
I love it.
Billy Madison.
Perfect.
I view it different.
Go on, Joe. Go on. Right.
Yeah, I thought Nathan was saying something. No, it seems to me like they're, as Nathan puts it, greasing the skids for their new paradigm. That's how it seems to me, bit by bit. You know, eventually they're going to have to accept not a globe, but they're going to try and keep heliocentric space and a lot of other rubbish and general relativity. They don't want to lose everything. Then they lose everything. So
Imagine
that's what it seems to me.
Imagine a paradigm that we created, akin to the paradigm that's been created in heliocentrism. But we say, in our paradigm, the sky is made of flammable gases. We've all got to be very, very careful at certain altitudes that it doesn't explode because of the flammable gases that are up there. For reasons that I don't need to get into, there are very specific reasons for why they're flammable gases that I can easily justify and explain. And claim there's men up there dealing with the flammable gases in an area of the sky that you can't reach and don't visit and don't need to actually concern yourself with, but there's definitely people concerned with it, dealing with it as we speak. Flammable gases, we all clear in the flat earth paradigm that I'm going to invent. Yeah? Then someone comes along and goes, Earth's not flat, it's actually sphere-shaped. Yeah? And I come along and say, how do you explain, how do you overcome the problem of the flammable gases in your sphere-shaped model? And the guy with the sphere-shaped model goes, what the hell are you talking about? There's no need to explain any flammable gases. There aren't any flammable gases. And I go, yeah, there are. In my model. How do you explain them? It's like, what are you talking about? Same with gravity. In our sphere model, we have gravity explaining how people can be stuck to the bottom of a ball. But in your flat earth gravity, doesn't work. What are you talking about? I don't need people stuck to the bottom of a flat plane. I don't need people stuck to anything for any reason, other than they're more dense than the medium they're in, if they're in air. They might not be. They might be swimming along in water, bobbing on the top of it, floating. But regardless, it doesn't need explaining at all. But you're going to force this apologetics for your own model onto our model that we don't claim. What an outrage.
Good
What's
summary.
mass again? Does this dude even know what mass is, or did he define it?
Undoubtedly not.
Let's keep reading. Well, they are genuinely worth looking up, because what I found really fascinating about the Eric Dubay 200 proofs, there are 200 of them, and they're in there, is that it was published in 2016. So it was 3 years after we had the infinite plane and gravitational kind of explanation via Einstein's theory of relativity. Well, the spelling is horrendous. So it was there 3 years of what you would expect to be evolution and sophistication. But in fact, proof number 1, the horizon looks flat. Proof. Number 2, even if you go up to a mountain, the horizon looks flat. proof number 3, water can't stick to a curved surface. It always goes level and you can't get it. So there's no way it could stick to a ball. So they're all very, very simplistic arguments, and there's 200 of them. Some of them stick to sort of a pseudo-physical property. Others go to conspiracy theories. What a hack. What the heck is this guy trying to say there?
Well, in some ways, I kind of do agree with him, because when he's saying people throw out proofs of the horizon, why are we doing that? I've recently had a go at Dave Weiss for doing exactly that. Why are you making a claim about the horizon? You don't need to make a claim about the horizon. Their claim is seated in the horizon. So you need to take apart their claim. Again, it's the same principle as them imposing gravity onto a flat earther to explain, because it's needing apologising for in their model. In their model, they have a physical geometric limitation at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. It's called Earth curve, and claimed to be the horizon. What do I need the horizon for? What am I using it for to make any claims? It's part of the definition of being horizontal. But what difference does that make to me? I'm not using it as a proof of anything. They are. So what, again, superimpose your need for a sphere edge onto us? Likewise, what we're going to get to next, falling off the edge of a pizza pie that's flying up at 9.8 meters per second squared. Because I don't need the horizon for anything. As a folly, we might discuss why, the whys and wherefores of the horizon, and why it's created, and what effects in optical terms we're dealing with. But who cares? I'm not using it to claim it's flat. Now,
Well, they're using it.
They're
I was
using
going
it.
to say they're using it to establish geometry and a claim of volume to the Earth as a circumference that blocks boats and buildings. So when he was talking about mass, the center of mass, and all of that, they need it really, really bad.
Yeah.
To be a physical geometric obstruction.
Exactly. They require it to be an obstruction, so they want us arguing about what we say the horizon does, so they can come back with, no, we say it's a physical geometric sphere edge limitation, and here's the maths to prove it. It's like, okay, so this rests on your proving that it is a physical sphere edge at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and it matters not what I say it is at all. Doesn't matter. At that point, you've got your claim of it being a sphere edge, and that's it. What's that? Why does the sun go behind it? I don't know, who cares? If it was a sphere edge, it would be at that geometric limitation that a sphere could only have. That's a hill getting in the way, my friend. And if it's beyond the limitations of that hill, here you go, Black Swan, then it's not a hill getting in the way anymore. Hills don't move. So, no, you haven't proven that it's a hill getting in the way, i.e. Earth curve, that you keep calling the horizon. We have got a horizon. We've only got one of them, and it's not your sphere edge. I can debunk that. Next. But you need to tell me what it is. No, I don't. But why does the sun go? Don't care. Earth is flat. We measure it that way. We build on it that way. We navigate it that way. I can demonstrate all three of those things, and you can't refute any of them. So if you want me to prove it's flat, not that I'm offering that up when you tell me the horizon's a sphere edge, I'm not offering you any of those things when you say that. I can debunk that, though. Matters not what I say it is.
So here, the part that I was referencing where it says towards the end, proof number 3, water can't stick to a curved surface. It's always level and you can't get it. So there's no way it can stick to a ball. So they're all very simplistic arguments, and there's 200 of them. Some of them stick to sort of a pseudo-physical properties.
Stop a second.
Others go to conspiracy theory.
That's just a hand wave dismissal. So saying water at rest is flat. Water finds and maintains level. That's true. It's used in the building properties when we build on the flat plane we're dwelling atop. That's a geometric principle used every day. But he hand waves it like, well, that geometric principle that everybody's going to apply when they hold the spirit level is just some pseudo quasi. No. That's a fact. Water doesn't work on a sphere. And what's that? Gravity's a force? No, it isn't. Hasn't been for 107 years. There is no phenomena of mass attracting mass. So saying that mass is being pulled to the centre of a sphere Earth, no, it isn't. You've got a geodesic in space-time with your world flying up at 9.8 meters per second. That's you, with your claim and your stupidity, that doesn't explain how people would be stuck to the bottom of a sphere Earth that you've used a flat Earth to get. So it's all nonsense on your part. I'm not going to be apologising for any of it. Hand wave, water being level, it is.
So far through from the beginning to now, it's the begging the question already in the globe assumption with every comeback that there is without proving it first. That's what I'm saying so far. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. Apologise for all the things that they're going to fail on when it comes to us debating them. But point out that there's going to be plenty of pseudo-nonsense from flat earthers who want to explain things, because that's how it's been positioned. It's been set up so that flat earthers explain the very difficult claims that the ball earthers must justify to prove they're on a sphere and can't. We can show how they can't. So, much, much more beneficial to have the flat earthers coming out with claims about the horizon. The horizon always rises to eye level, says Eric Debay. That's fundamentally incorrect. Why is he stating it? Well, it means you can argue about what the horizon does while they say it's Earth curve edges. You don't need to be making a claim. Your claim that the horizon did or might rise to eye level proves nothing anyway. The fact that it doesn't makes you look stupid. So it's great, they've got loads of things to combat you with. The thing that defeats your argument is one of the ways that they claim they got the R value with Al Bruni's dip measurement to the horizon. Well, that, by very inference, is suggesting that the horizon does not rise to eye level, and they're prepared to lay it on their slab and say, here you go, here's our proof of how we measured the radius of Earth, with the very fact that the horizon does not rise to eye level. I got R from it. Now, if you're making claims that it does, and they can show that it doesn't, then you've lost. But were you in any position to require to make a horizon-based claim about your flat Earth? No, but you were fed one, weren't you, by Eric Debay? About the horizon rising to eye level incorrectly? Well, it might be justifiable by him to say after the fact that, oh, I said appears to. No, it doesn't. Might say that, but it doesn't actually tally with what we experience when we're talking about the nitty-gritty of the minutiae of the measurement of the Earth that we stand on. Who gives a crap what it appears to do? What we know is they measure it as a physical limitation and claim it's a horizon that's Earth curve getting in the way of boats and buildings. That's it. They've got maths that we can pull apart. So let's focus on that. Let's pull them apart. We did it years ago, pointing out all the flaws in their maths. And now we can debunk the very premise of the horizon being Earth curve in the first instance. That's it. We win. Don't beg me to then tell you what the horizon is, because I don't care what you need after the fact. Once we've proven beyond all doubt that it's not Earth curve, we have.
Can
Right.
I
Let
just
me
on
just
say
that?
something, Gary.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on, Brian. Go
Sorry.
on.
I just have a small presentation just on that. I just something me and Adam did on flat size the other night there. If you can see this green circle, right? This is the geometric size of their globe, right? As a circle with a radius of 3959 miles. This red circle is the size of their globe with a constant of 7/6 added. The reason I'm talking about this is because the only thing we need to say about the horizon is that it's not physical, which it's not. There's no physical location there. It's an optical location. So, which they agreed with us because they had no choice to in 2020 and started claiming, which has been claimed forever, that the horizon is always refracted. So not physical, not geometric. So this red circle here is the actual globe. They always have to, they're always addressing at least this size. There's never smaller than this. They're always addressing a globe that has at least 7/6R, which would be this red line. So this green circle or this red circle, this green circle has no place in anything because they've never, according to them, it's what from what their claim is, with this red circle being a constant, they've never ever seen any of this green circle. They can't see it because they're always dealing with this red circle. So then we take it to the black swan. Now I'm going to show you the size of the circumference of the circle that they need when they're within their that they need to assert within their black swan claim of it being infinite over 6R.
Black swan rebuttal.
Watch this. Yes, that's the size.
Just go back into the globe Earth size, and then we'll zoom back out. So I'll just reiterate what Brian's saying. Here we have Earth as a sphere in their scale maths, with Earth as a sphere with 7/6 applied to that sphere to increase the radius value to the outer edge. Now we're going to take you to what Earth claimed to be a sphere with a measurement at the observer's height of 1 foot would give you. if you took that horizon and calculated out how big Earth would be. Now, that is actually in the heliocentric model a little bit beyond the claim to be orbital path of the moon. So Earth as a sphere would be bigger than the distance between the current centre point of a sphere Earth and beyond the orbital motion of the moon around it in the heliocentric model. I mean, it's all nonsense. The moon doesn't move around a sphere Earth in a heliocentric vacuum. But I'm just saying, in their maths, that's how big the edge of the sphere would be in the black swan image. Carry on, Brian.
No, that's it. That's all I wanted to show. Just how ridiculous. Just while we're talking about the horizon, we're only ever claiming that it's not physical, not geometric, because it's not. And they have to claim literally this crazy nonsense because it's not physical and not geometric. This is where they have to go to, and it would be even worse again with any observation from a 1 foot observation height that is further than 10 miles out. This is just for taking into account a distance to the horizon of 10 miles from a 1 foot observation height. Whereas if it's more than that, like BLMSB 69 has filmed, he's filmed from a 1 foot observation height, almost 28 to 31 miles. I mean, that would be an even much huger circle. This is how crazy it is. So the green circle is their globe. The red circle is the globe they always have to start off with referencing, which is the 7/6 globe, because they can never ever reference the green globe, which is their 3959 globe. And when it comes to just the black swan image, they need to create a globe this size. Because the horizon is not physical and geometric. That's it. I'm finished.
All right, we got 2 small paragraphs, and we'll be at a stopping point till tomorrow. So I think proof 199 is saying that, well, Isaac Newton and Neil Armstrong and Galileo, they were all Freemasons. Therefore, the world is flat. And so you have this kind of this video, and it was also published as a free ebook, which collected lots of different so-called proofs of the world being flat that picked from lots of different genre of proof. So if you come to the flat earth, if you were generally interested in conspiracy theory, there we go, the labeling, you'd come to it and you'd find enough conspiracy theory reasons to believe the world is flat in there. If you came to it because you place too much emphasis on your own powers of observation, you can't show me the curve. I'm looking out at the horizon. I can't see the curve. You can't tell me my eyes are wrong. If that's your style of thinking, there were arguments in there for you that would tell you that that would support the idea of a world is flat. So I think it's kind of covered all its bases a little bit. If you came from a fundamentalist Christian perspective, this should be juicy, in a biblical literalism, that the world is 6,000 years old and created in 7 days as per the Bible, which a large part of the flat earth movement is actually crash creationism in other guys. What terrible transcript. And there were creationist arguments in there that would support the idea of the world is flat. So it really did pull together different genre of flat earth arguments into one document. And I think that's why it became quite successful, because it had a little bit for anybody who might be in any way inclined to doubt the veracity of the round earth theory. We'll pause there till tomorrow.
I mean, when we
I
first...
kind of agree with him on the Mason thing and the conspiracies. I kind of agree with him on that.
What, that it makes us look stupid when we start talking about people being Freemasons, therefore Earth's flat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But back to the beginning of this particular excerpt, what we've got is him saying that the flat earth has come up with conspiratorial and esoteric and confusing proofs. Yet when we first came out with the Black Swan, we had people refuting it by saying that's a straw man, when the first part of the modus tollens asserts their position, if A is actually their position, but it's just never been paraphrased back to them without it being our phraseology within the Black Swan that asserts their claim. But that claim is Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 because every distance to the horizon is 1.2 times the square root of your observation height in feet, and anything beyond that geometric hill getting in the way at 1.2 times your square root of your observer's height will be blocked by that hill getting in the way. That's our proof that the Earth's a sphere. That's the claim laid down in a much more concise way in the opening statement of the modus tollens argument known as the Black Swan. But that's, what, simple? You're on a sphere because the horizon blocks your view at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and things beyond that hill getting in the way are going to be blocked by the hill getting in the way, and you can alter the hill that gets in the way by raising your elevation and square rooting the height to give you the geometric limitation that the hill blocks things. That's not simple. And the horizon's not Earth curve. They've just worked out where the horizon will be and said it's blocking everything beyond it when you can't see stuff beyond it. Not that I, again, need to offer up an explanation, but they've hijacked perspective and called it Earth curve. But this isn't a simple proof, see? Further to that, it's been debunked.
The way he ends this portion is the way the modus tollens starts the argument. He says here at the end, in any way inclined to doubt the veracity of the round Earth claim. Well, we put the veracity of your round Earth claim. If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959, I mean, we're putting it there and we're testing it. What's he talking about?
Welcome. Flat Earth Debate live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by the Adam Meakin, joining in my introduction. Thank you very much indeed. 10th Man, Brian's Logic, Neil, Refracted Curvature, Righteous Force. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. And a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh,
Good morning.
Hey, good afternoon.
Afternoon, everyone.
Good to have you all. Welcome, welcome. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet getting in the way of stuff, formerly known as the horizon?
Never seen it. No one ever has claimed to see it.
Well, in the mathematics, it exists below surface level. That point of tangency called the horizon in Earth curve maths is below surface level.
Impossible, given that the horizon we see is developed by where the surface level meets the sky in terms of the definition of a horizon. That would make it a second horizon. So when they say we don't see that horizon, it's never to be seen, what they're basically saying is, like we say, the horizon in our maths Earth curve isn't to ever be seen. It exists below surface level, and surface level, in the definition of a horizon, creates the limitation that we see at that point, where the sky appears to meet the ground, or sea. Therefore, the horizon only exists in the maths. In fact, that was a quote from Rumpus. The geometric horizon, that's Earth curve, only exists in the maths.
Well, funny to that, the refracted horizon only exists in the mass below surface level as well, too.
So even if you refract the horizon with the 7/6r derivation of the r that's below surface level that you can't see, and we debunked with the black swan, then you can refract the horizon to a 7/6r increase of the circle that's still below surface level. So a third horizon. We've only got one horizon, and the horizon in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator marked with an X and labelled horizon is the geometric horizon. But if they add in a second horizon, that would be a third horizon, and we've only got one. Hello, Arwin.
Hello.
Nathan, didn't they give credit to this discovery to one mentioned Al-Biruni?
They did. They claimed that the dip angle measurement to the horizon, which would be below surface level, correctly identified by John in this example, is their version of acquisition of R after measuring the height of the mountain to be able to do this calculation off a flat plane.
Right. So Al-Biruni never even factored in refraction when he did this. So how are the modern day ballers bringing in refraction when Al-Biruni never even got it in?
Well, they're using a paradoxical R value to increase the rate of the radial value to increase the circle that they're claiming is the surface level that blocks boats and buildings in the distance at the maths at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. But in so doing, they're relinquishing their ability to measure the geometry because they can't see it anymore. So it leaves them in a paradox. Go on.
No, they can't. They can't say that. Surface level is a plane in that mathematics. It's a straight line running horizontal to eye level.
That's correct.
So
they
can't.
can't. No, you're right. They can't say that because now, regardless of whether you describe refracting the horizon with R, and I describe you not being able to acquire the geometric horizon, both are below surface level. Epic.
So after all said and done, it's just a thought experiment, but in reality, no one's ever been able to match that number with what they see.
What they see would be the surface. This all happens in the maths below surface level.
No, I'm talking ballers who say, well, we would never expect to see the geometric horizon because of the atmosphere, and refraction is all the excuses. Whereas Al-Biruni took the measurement of a mountain using a flat plane, then went up there, had a depression angle to the horizon, and the difference between this eye-line horizon and the surface sea level is how he got his ball Earth without refraction being part of it, and said it's 3959. Now, we all know that he could have gone on 2 hours later when the weather was worse and had a whole different math. So what do they do with this when they can't use? If Al-Biruni got it without refraction at all being a constant or even reference, how can these modern day ballers use refraction?
After they've measured a flat plane, just like Al-Biruni.
Well, you take the fun out of it.
Yeah, there's not much of a thought going into this thought experiment, it seems like,
Yeah. If I imagine that the world's a ball, I'll just go and make a few measurements off the flat plane we're living on, and then I can turn it into one.
And then when questioned, say, well, what do you expect me to see it? I've never seen it. I just know we're on the ball, but I've never seen it.
But that's how they claim they know they're on a ball, is that they can measure it.
Well, that was what you used as the proof that we're on a ball and justified your ridicule of flat earthers, John, on account of the fact that you were under the impression that you could measure it.
Right. If you can measure it, then you're measuring it, like you talk about like how much of this thing should be physically blocked by it. You're still talking about Earth curve.
Yeah.
John, can you measure a thought experiment, John?
That measure a refracted horizon is the point. The paradox leaves you in a position where you have to appreciate that you're no longer measuring it. John's reiterating that or stressing that it, because it is Earth curve. If you're going to assert that Earth's a sphere, a prerequisite is that it has an Earth curve edge blocking your view. That must be there. Now, they've used that against us up until 2020 because they're saying, what do you explain the horizon with when we can clearly see it's blocking things at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet? So then flat earthers go, well, look, this is beyond the measurements. The item that you say is blocked, not paying attention to the horizon. They go, well, the item is refracted with respect to the horizon that we're claiming is proved as Earth curve in these maths. So it doesn't matter that it's slightly less blocked or slightly more blocked. I'm saying it's blocked, and it's blocked by Earth curve, and that's at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height of feet. And this is refraction with respect to the geometric horizon I'm proving. Then you go, okay, well, now the horizon's beyond where it can be as a hill. What say you? Well, the horizon's refracted also. Oh, so it's not Earth curve getting in the way then? Well, that's the end of their claim. They didn't realise that in 2020 when they first started saying refraction to us. But the moment you say it's refraction, so it's not proving Earth curve. It's not geometrically blocking the boat at a calculable rate. Because it's no longer calculable as a geometric blockage. It's not a hill getting in the way anymore. Most of them were far too dumb to realise that when they parroted off refraction to us. Oh, what if it's refracted, it's not geometric, and your claim is a geometric claim? Idiots.
John, what was it that kept you a ball earther, John?
Well, I thought I was measuring.
He just said
curvature.
like 10 seconds ago. There's a scene in Zoolander where the David Duchovny or whatever he's called character's talking to Ben Stiller about how models have been trained to be super fighting athletes and assassinate various different heads of state. And he explains it in great detail. And then afterwards, the Ben Stiller character accidentally repeats the last line, which was, but why models? Yeah? And the David Duchovny character just says, I just explained it to you, like literally 20 seconds ago, right? And they kept it in the movie, but that's a bit like what's just happened between Neil and John. So why? Well, because I couldn't measure it. Here's why I couldn't measure it. Back and forth between him and me about him not measuring it. And then Neil says, so what kept you on a ball? Well, before that point, you could measure it, Neil.
I know that. I want to hear John.
What?
You know, not everybody listening has been listening. There are new people that join every day.
That's a confession, and that's an embedded confession in the most raw you could ever hear. Not everybody listening is actually listening. You mean you weren't paying attention, Neil?
No, I'm saying there's new people on the show, and they would like to hear how John became
Of
a flat earther.
course. There's new people on the show, John. Right? It's not that Neil's not been paying attention up until now and was distracted with something else and wants you to repeat the beginning
Oh,
part.
come on. Come on,
Jesus,
Neil.
John, forget it.
No, Neil
now
was
he's
just
getting, now he's getting
setting John up
bolshy
for
with
the
me because I've
audience.
called him. Oh, have a go, Neil.
Leave what you want.
I'm only messing with you, Neil. It's just a bit of friendly fun. It's obviously because there's new people. It's always good to repeat things. I'm just using you as an excuse to do that. Just see that you're being used in a beneficial way. That's all I'm doing.
All right, John. Everyone's been used. Now give the answer.
For the longest time, I thought you could measure Earth curve. And if you're measuring it, then it exists. Then everything is kind of wrapped up in that.
Would that be synonymous with someone with a different argument, but almost the same parameters? Like, for example, man, I always thought those pictures from space was of a globe Earth, but now I've come to find out they don't have any.
Well, it's a little bit different because it's something you can go out and do yourself, right? You know, you can't go to space. So you have to kind of take that on faith. But up until January of 2020, I thought I could measure the physical blockage that we call I called the horizon.
Right, but you hadn't. You took it by faith.
No. He said, you can't measure anything from space. You can't go to space. But what you can measure, or what he was led to believe you could measure, was Earth curve. It's laid down in the maths. 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet will give you the geometric limitation marked with an X and labelled horizon. That's Earth curve. He thought you could measure it practically. Him, personally, not with a tape measure, but measure it.
No, I got that. But the fact that he hadn't done it and come to the truth earlier. He trusted people who said they did. So we're back to trust.
No, it had nothing to do with trust. I have worked with surveyors before, and when you look at the horizon as a baller, you think you are measuring a physical geometric obstruction to objects in the distance.
Did you do it?
Why are you hampering on this? It matters not. By your question, I can tell that you're segueing the main purpose of his point and trying to redirect it onto the point you made earlier, which I'm not going to repeat. But no, that's not where he's going.
What point is that?
It matters not if he did it or not. He's not taking it on trust. His point is that he, as a globe earther, looks out at the horizon and goes, I can measure that because what I can see is actually there and is actually Earth curve and it's going to actually block things behind it.
Right, but he'd have to assume we're on the ball to even do that.
He said that, but it doesn't matter that at that point he might say, oh, well, others have done it. I haven't physically done it. That isn't the point.
No, I'm looking at it a totally different way, but I see what you're saying. So
good. That's it. Yeah. So you could measure it until 1st of Jan 2020. There was a justifiable, reasonable man, John, who thought I can measure the Earth as a sphere exactly as it's claimed to be measurable. We have debunked that. And that is the primary claim of Earth curve. There's a reason we do get hung up on the flat plane every day on this question. Why do we get hung up on any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curve? Because that is the primary claim. Beyond space, which you can't visit, you've got a practical way claimed to be measurable to demonstrate to you as the individual that Earth's a sphere. And in the first instance, that's all we measured about. All we did day in, day out on Flat Earth Debate was have the Earth curve calculator shoved in our face. Look, here's the maths for how the horizon's blocking stuff. Let's see a picture. Let's compare it. Okay? So you're saying the horizon's blocking stuff in the distance and we're going to calculate how much it's blocking it by? All right, well, if the Earth was a sphere radius 3959 miles, then every distance to that horizon you're claiming blocks the view of this boat could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer site in feet, as your maths dictates. And if it isn't, then it's not Earth curve. You only have to show once that it's not a hill getting in the way, because hills that are physically blocking stuff, that are measurable as blocking stuff, don't move beyond the thing they're blocking the following day.
Not according to Rumpus.
He spent plenty of time arguing with me personally about how much of the Isle of Man was blocked by the physical geometry of Earth curve. So to come back 3 years later and say, oh, we said it was refracted, so not blocking the Isle of Man then? Well, okay. Well, that's a concession. The fact that you need to lie about it and claim that you were always saying it was refracted when you were claiming it was blocking the bottom of the Isle of Man is absurd and an outright lie. But that's what Rumpus is, a liar. He has to be. He's on a sphere. Go on.
When he said I always refracted it, he said it instead of the horizon for a reason. Because he was refracting the lighthouse with respect to the horizon.
I trimmed it out.
And then you called him on it.
Yeah,
and
I trimmed
he said,
it out.
I've always refracted the horizon.
Precisely.
Which made him a liar.
Exactly. When I forced him into saying, I've always refracted the horizon, he was banned. Now, not immediately. I gave him 3 opportunities. I even trimmed it out and put it next to his lie. So it was as clear as it could possibly be with his claim followed by his lie 3 years later. And he, after hearing that and publishing that, still came back in and tripled down on his lie. So I said, you're never going to come back again. You know, the levels of deceit are too high for me to tolerate, I'm afraid. Get lost. You're never coming back.
And he came in ball busters and still triple and quadrupled down. So he's done.
Well, he came in and tried to poison the well, which we all tolerated. We let him have his little speech poisoning the well, telling the audience that we're all idiots. So when he'd finished his little poisoning the well, I said, well, you're a liar. Here's how. And he immediately started interrupting me. You know, great, as on Friday of last week, and I think I've published this on the second channel. Subscribe today to my second channel if you want to catch up with the Uncut and After shows. But I published exactly that, a description of a guy. Now, I published it as the spy who conned me, or this guy who conned me, right? I put it out with this guy doing exactly that. saying he wants me to go to a neutral platform. I'm like, I'm on a commercial channel. I make money from this. This is how I make my living. If you want to pay me, then different story. But then he gets into saying I've never been anywhere. I've not been to any other platforms. So I say, no, I have. I've been to blah, 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 blah. As soon as they're proven wrong, they want to be on a platform where they have control over me in such a manner that when I prove them wrong, they can shut me down immediately. Now me, I shut them down from interrupting me refuting their claims. And I'm called a scammer and a scumbag for having control of my show. Nathan and his mute button. It's like, what? No, I appreciate that when I refute your claim, you'd prefer that you do what Rumpus does. And just talk straight through it so an audience doesn't get to hear it. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of this being set up, by the way. If anybody wants to look back and listen to the discussions I've had literally with the opponents about why I'm setting up Flat Earth debate, it's because I went out on the circuit and got muted everywhere I went. I was like, I'm just trying to put my rebuttal to them, and they just turn me right down or shut me down completely halfway through a sentence. Out on the circuit, doing the rounds where people think I'm stuck in an echo chamber. It's like, why do you think this platform exists? It exists because flat earthers didn't get an opportunity when they were out on the circuit. I was one of them, going on other people's channels. You know, a few of them I say subscribe to. I went out on, I can't remember what the guy's name was, black guy with a channel that was very Christian. Started slagging off flat earthers, offered out the link to join. I joined, started handing him his ass, and he shouted me down, turned me off, muted me, and I was like, this is part of the course. This happens everywhere you go. Same when I went to Steve McClown, you know, same exact thing. He was like, oh, we'll have a 2-on-2 or a 4-on-4 or wherever it was arranged. It was all pre-arranged in email. And then you had a rotating door of about 25 ballers, one after the next, not letting us get a single word out. You're like, these people are scumbag liars. They'll turn you down, mute you, and then put a revolving door of 25 people when they've agreed to a 4-on-4. So you're just like, no, they're liars. So what am I going to do to combat this? Well, the only way to combat it is to do it yourself. Now, at the time, I had absolutely no knowledge how to debate the subject in any coherent way. So I shut the hell up and listened. But that's why this is here. So when scumbags come in and start telling me you've never been anywhere, you're too scared, you're a scared little boy, and calling me a cunt, you're like, no, let's shut this guy down. I have been somewhere. Check out this link. Here's Charles. On the clip, I've put it in. There's me debating Charles, asking him for R, and saying, you've claimed to your audience you don't need R. Basically, because he can't measure it anymore. That's what we've just been discussing. This is the point of this whole ramble. Charles says he doesn't need R because he can't measure it. I go in, and within 5 seconds of any claim he makes ever, he will require R, and I proved that to him, to his audience, that he's a lying shit. He does absolutely require R. His justification when I hold him to task with his absolute requirement for R was, well, that's just an estimate, in a very high-pitched voice. I'm like, no, that's your concession, mate. You've said you don't need it. Now you're using an estimate. No, you need a measurement. Yeah, that's what I'm here to tell you and your audience. While all of his audience are super chatting him, saying, he's telling Nathan that we don't need it. Yeah, now I've got him over a barrel with all you twats super chatting Charles, giving him money on the basis that he doesn't need R. And then the flat earther comes along and goes, yeah, you damn well do, and I'll prove it, you lying shit. On your own channel to your own audience, while they all back you up with super chats about how you don't need it, until I force you to need it, because every claim needs it. That's what I did when I was out on the circuit recently, away from my mute button. Oh, what happened when I held Charles to task on his absolute stone cold requirement for R? He muted me and attempted to try and take charge of the questioning process for his R that he needed. All of which got pointed out to a degree because he muted me when he lost. Didn't like the fact that I was pointing out his lie about not needing R when it's an absolute requirement. So I got muted. Not because I was rumpusing, because I was annihilating. Again, another reason why I'm here, putting my arguments after listening to people's opinions, after they get their little diatribe out, not when they want to repeat it through the rebuttal. But that's why this channel's here. Tell your friends. We're only about, 22 minutes into the show, and we've already annihilated the globe, proven how you need a flat earth to measure it, justified how they've hoodwinked you into believing the horizon's a physical sphere edge with a donkey dick bent horizon from a non-measurable geometric limitation at G in this diagram. We've explained it all. This is the cutting edge of flat earth. Share the show. Make sure your friends know. If you're in any way inclined to promote the notion of flat earth, you must be promoting this show. Because as far as I am concerned, it is the only one that actually does that. That and the show's connected, notwithstanding everybody on the panel who also simultaneously do that. But within this little clique that is Flat Earth Debate, we are the only people who do that. Actually debunk the claim that we're on a sphere and point out how, in the case of the diagram that just whizzed by, Al-Biruni measured a flat plane to get there. How there's a geometric limitation at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Not the straw man they say it is when it's their own claim. We'll get them to eat their own hat when it comes to them asserting that, because they'll be telling us how non-geometric their horizons are, or how it only exists in the maths when we welcome them to Flat Earth here. That is what we do. Tell your friends, share the show. But we are going to move on. So any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No, and the thing is, you do it without claiming what we think the horizon is. We just debunk it.
We can and we do.
Good morning, guys.
But not when we're in debate and someone's laying down a claim that it's Earth curve. And at that point, there's a primary role that you must play as a flat earther. Now, you might be able to go back and go, hey, I knew back in the day you used to say something different. I don't care. This is how it is now. The primary claim is Earth curve, and the primary purpose, if you're a flat earther out debating this subject with somebody you feel the notion to convert, because you're self-righteous and feel that you need to go around converting people like some flat earth evangelist, then fine, I'm not going to moan at you. Do as you will. But you need to primarily debunk their claim that the Earth's a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, and every distance to horizon will provide a physical limitation to things in the distance because its Earth curve claimed to be the horizon blocking stuff beyond it. You need to debunk that first. That is literally step one. You want to mention this subject to your mates? Well, then you better damn well be debunking Earth curve as your first thing you do. Because after that point, what have they got to come back at you with? If you want to postulate how you think anything is in the world, why the sky's blue or why the horizon is formed. Yeah, you might want to be their guru after the fact because you feel all smart and intelligent because you debunk the horizon. But make sure you do that bit first. Debunk the horizon as Earth curve. So axial
Good morning,
rotation
guys.
of the Earth-based horizon.
No evidence of axial rotation.
But if the Earth was turning, we'd have two reference frames and things would drift at 15 degrees an hour as claimed in footballs and pendulums. And bullets.
No,
have a
you
lot on
debunk
Earth?
Earth. If you debunk Earth curve, then it's not a ball, and how can it be spinning?
Check it out, John. He's listening. Yeah, you'll need a radius value for that, and we've debunked that when we debunked their measurement of it.
Yeah, I was getting ready to go there, Neil.
Neil's totally redeemed himself, you see.
Good. I want to say good morning.
Hey, Chocolate.
Good morning, Chocolate. No redeeming. Neil just wanted John to tell his story if anybody there wasn't listening before.
I think Nathan said it earlier when he said every single claim of theirs needs the R value. If you debunk the R value, you don't need to even go to the other claim.
Right. Remember, they start holding up sphere models after you've debunked their R value. You go, why are you holding up this? You haven't got a measurement of an R value to claim that we're on a sphere to hold up this model to ask me how my flat Earth version works. Did I make a claim about it? Meanwhile, we've debunked R. You better get an R value if you're going to hold up this sphere to ask me how it works on a flat Earth. Not that I will be, unless I'm making a claim about it, like with celestial navigation. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
Just real quick about the model you mentioned of a sphere. Do they have a model?
Not that
Or
we've seen.
do they just hold up flat Earth models?
They just hold up flat Earth models. We haven't been presented with an actual globe Earth model since I've been in this arena, something that QE pointed out to Cathexis. He then used to great effect, and I congratulated him on it, only to find out it was QE's argument after the fact. But yeah, ask them for their model. Let's see it then. Globe model. Let's see it. What's that? That's Google Earth. That's a flat Earth model. Just draw out an elevation profile in it. What's that? You've got a map. You say it's a spherical projection. No, it isn't. It came from the celestial sphere model, which is a flat plane.
Stellarium itself is a flat Earth model, which I'm sure I would trigger some Glovers with that. But it's just showing the celestial sphere model as it relates to the flat earth you're standing on.
Any evidence that we can have gas pressure, that which we are all breathing, without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, that's impossible.
That's about it. We're done. Right, let's pack up. Let's go home. There's no Earth curve, and all pictures of Earth from a sphere, as a sphere, from a sky vacuum called space, or outer space, are debunked. That is basically it. There's no axis to have radial values to give you axial rotation. We debunked R. There's no sphere edge horizon claiming to prove that we're on a sphere, blocking your view. And any pictures that claim to purport to be a sphere from a sky vacuum are debunked because the area itself is fake. We wouldn't have gas pressure to breathe if there was an area above our heads, a vast volume for that gas pressure to vacate into, because that's what gas pressure does. It expands to fill whatever volume it's got, and space would be a massive volume. So we'd all be dead. That's the end of the sphere claim.
There's still another option for them. They can, since there's no real rebuttal to any of these things that we pointed out, their pride could cause them to claim a boycott instead of an actual avoidance.
Boycott of what? The globe? I mean, boycott away.
Of your show.
Who cares?
That's why there's no one in here arguing, because they don't have anything to argue.
Look, if you are that mental patient who's fallen down the hill and is now in hell with us in this little arena, telling the people around you that it's still a sphere and then patting you on the back and telling you that you're right, then you are that mental patient fighting with the nurse trying to treat you. We're the nurse, you're the mental patient. Now, does it faze the nurse that you don't want treatment? No, that's par for the course for the nurse. You all don't want treatment, you're all nuts, right? So what's that? You want to boycott the nurse? Okay, no worries. The nurse will still be doing what the nurse does. It should be inconsequential to you if you weren't a nutter. But the nurse is only there because you're a nutter.
Well, this is just the nurses sitting in the break room drinking coffee, laughing about what the mental patients say at that point.
While they try and get the attention of the nurses and tell the nurses that they need to meet you behind the bike sheds on neutral territory. What a laugh. You're all nuts.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead. 103 people watching. Finally broken the 100 barrier after I was called a scammer by Jaron and crew. Woohoo! Excellent. Thank you, everyone who shared the show, by the way. I shouldn't really just describe it to the fact that we've beaten a target that we were easily hitting daily before being called a scammer. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone who shared the show. Please share the show. This is the best Flat Earth content you will find on God's green earth.
Correct. My question is science all about building and testing models?
No. Cause and effect relationships based on phenomena observed in nature, not models. Models aren't that.
Okay, because I'm reading something in Wired. I'll bring it tomorrow, but that's what I just read. Science is all about building and testing models.
I mean, you could call a theory... Sometimes a scientific theory gets described as a model, which can be the combination of lots of different validated hypotheses tests, which are experiments. I.e., you actually did prove the cause of the effect. You didn't just validate the null. Not there's anything wrong with that. Still validation, still proving something. But either way, if you do see a phenomena in nature, suppose the cause of the effect, vary and manipulate it to see if it causes it, and it does, then you've fulfilled all of the scientific method. At that point, you can form a scientific theory, and some people call them models, depending on how they're utilised, because you're using the information. So, you're a slightly sticky wicket with that one, because you've got to really clarify what they've got to call a model. Because if they're starting at the beginning of the process with that model, then definitely not. If they're at the end, after a load of experiments have been done, and they've formed it together into what we would call a theory, then maybe. You can, in certain circumstances, have what you'd call a quote-unquote scientific model.
Well, it says that they collect data. Throughout the course, the students collect data and build models of their own.
Stop. That's what I just said. I clarified it before you even did for me. If you're using a model at the start of the process by gathering data, no. Step 1, observe natural phenomena. Step 2, suppose the cause of the effect. At that point, you've already got a hypothesis. You've got a dependent variable, the phenomena you observed, and you've got an independent variable, the supposition of cause of the effect you're observing. Well, at that point, that is all you need for a hypothesis. Unless you're a moron, you can formulate that into a null. If your supposed cause, then the effect you're studying. If your supposed cause, then you don't get the effect you're studying being the null. That's it. Then you vary your presumed cause and see if it causes it. That's science. Not gather data.
Nathan, when I was a kid, I bought a lot of models of airplanes and cars, and with the glue, and you take it apart. And on the box, it always said what the scale was to the real thing. Does the globe have a real thing that we have a model for that's a scale to it, or just cars that we see in reality?
No, there's no scale. There's no model at all. Like we said earlier, ask a glober. Okay, let's see the model. What's this model of globe Earth called? Does it have everything in it? Where's the gravity? Etc., etc. You'll never find a model. They don't have one. Of a globe.
They have.
Of a globe. Let's just clarify that. There is no globe model. Globe model doesn't exist. There are various aspects of navigation that are claimed to be derived from spherical projections that have been derived from a flat Earth model. That's what they've actually got. Just to be clear. Sorry, 10th. Go ahead.
No, I was saying that we're, especially with my story, hey, that's the car. Look, there it is. Hey, I just built the model. And you could hold them right next to each other, and the scale is there, and you see the real thing, and then you got a model of it. What we're saying with the black swan and other arguments is you can't produce the real thing, but you've got all these numbers and math, and you've got a ball, and you say this is the globe, and Neil deGrasse hits it. But where's the real thing I can match it up to? It doesn't ever show up in reality. The Coriolis Earth base doesn't show up in reality. Angle measurements from a curved baseline doesn't show up in reality. The horizon being Earth curve, geometric, physical, doesn't show up in reality. It's done.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Doesn't show up in reality.
Maybe if you...
What would you accept as evidence?
As it's not my claim, I don't care. But, you provide me the evidence and I'll assess it based on its validity. But in terms of, well, what evidence do you want? It's like, if you're a policeman and you're presented with a murder scene and they go, well, what evidence do you want? Well, the guy stood in front of me dripping with blood holding a knife would be nice, but, it's obviously your claim that this guy's did it, so you provide the evidence. Off you go.
We have a magnetic north.
That's fascinating. How is that evidence for a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth exactly?
Well, I suppose it depends on how you define evidence.
I'm not defining anything. What are you talking about? Depends how I define it. You define it. Feel free.
How do you explain it on your model?
I don't have a model. I haven't asserted that I have.
I have not then.
Oh, well, that's the end of that. Notice how quickly the argument went away from the claim needing to be justified by me when I said I didn't have a model. For all of you out there that ascribe to flat earth gurus that show you little suns flying along pizza pie pancakes. I mean, we'll ask a few questions that are directly linked to flat earthers that make the same guru claims that you're trying to move away from the heliocentric model, such as the distance to the sun. Any evidence of the distance to the sun? This applies to you too, flat earthers, the ones with models that you get held to task on and generally beaten with.
No evidence for the distance to the sun. Light in the sky.
Well, then what about the R value itself? As that's what they use
shadows.
to claim. Oh, go on. Shadows?
Yeah, the distance to the sun, shadows. The overclock value proves the sun. Because the 3959 proves why the sun is so big and far away. Because if the sun wasn't that big and far away, we wouldn't be on a globe with a radius of 3959.
How big and how far away is it?
As big and as far away as it needs to be for a shadow
Well,
to work on our 3959 globe.
Are you assuming parallel light? Is that what you're assuming with a curved surface that gives you the shadows?
Who's assuming anything? We know this is the reality.
What's the reality?
That we live on a globe of 3959 miles, and the sun is really big and far away. That's why we get parallel light rays, and that gives us the shadows that we see in reality. How do you explain them on your model?
I don't have a model. I don't have a model, but I know that I know that in the afternoon when the sun is not at my 90, but it's say at 30 degrees above the horizon, the trees cast a shadow sideways, whereas when it's high noon, the shadow's right below the tree. So the sun is moving, and its angular relationship to a flat plane is what's the cause of the shadows.
Yeah, but I have backward logic, and it confuses people because people start taking me serious because I have a PhD. yeah. Even I'm confused, but I don't even know it. But technically, shadows is all they have as a proof.
Are you going to need a flat Earth for that claim?
Yep.
But seriously, you are going to need a flat Earth for that claim?
No, because if the sun is really big and far away, then the shadows will match. If it's the right size and the right distance away, then the shadows will match. But they would match.
Are you talking about parallel?
Miles. Yeah, the light be coming in parallel from the sun.
And how will you measure?
What a coincidence! Just one sec. So on screen now, John. I just want you carry on. I won't steal your thunder, but there's a diagram on screen. I want you to bring to Brian's attention. Go ahead.
How will you measure the angles of the light rays to assert they're parallel? What are you going to be using as your baseline?
Well, we'll measure the shadows. We'll measure the shadows using obelisks and uprights.
So the shadows will be projected on what?
Onto the ground.
So the ground will be our baseline.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how do you get an angle to assert that those rays are parallel from a curved baseline?
No angle needed. We just need to know.
You just said you measured the angle. You just said you measured the angle off the baseline, right? Before
I never said anything about angles. I just said we measured the shadow.
Didn't say anything about angles, but that's what you're doing, right? Just before Brian does a very pathetic attempt to emulate Baldwin with his "I wasn't saying angles." Yeah, you were. Meanwhile, if you're paying attention to the housekeeping questions, this directly ties to the question we ask in regards to any evidence of an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline. This is what's happening. You've just seen the back and forth between Brian, who did actually do an excellent job. Well done, Brian. And John in this regard. But I'm going to plug away. I said last week, I only dispense with the modesty for a day. Sod that. We are the best on flat Earth. This is how you do it. This is how you debunk their claims. Further to that, did you want to get into what's on screen, or did you want to leave that to me, John?
Go ahead.
What did you say about? Can you see this?
Anyway, so
Yeah, well, I'm going to hold you over the barrel for it, Brian. So, what did you say? Parallel?
Yeah.
Like this diagram?
Yeah, like one side of it.
Where's the parallel? I don't see anything parallel in this at all. What are you talking about? You know what parallel means?
Yeah.
What's parallel mean? Because it's not in this diagram.
Well, the parallel means that lines are parallel. They're equal distance from each other along their length.
None of these lines explaining this eclipse here are doing that, though, are they? None.
All right.
What do you mean, all right, all
must have been
wrong
looking-
for a
I must have
globe?
been looking at a different diagram.
How are you going to explain your eclipse if you've got parallel light rays? This is a bit of a problem.
Eclipse of what?
Of the moon or the earth or the sun or whatever it is you're eclipsing in their heliocentric model.
Well,
Oh.
it's because of parallel light rays that it happen.
Not according to this description. The occultation is definitely not being described with parallel light in any example. All of the occultation isn't described with parallel light. Incorrect. Why would this diagram have it? Why wouldn't it be parallel in this diagram then?
Well, maybe the diagram is wrong.
Maybe. Or their claim would be wrong because it requires these converging and diverging light rays, doesn't it?
It could be doctored.
It could be a Muppet Vision representation of seeing the side of Earth in a sky vacuum, but meanwhile, it's not parallel.
Well, they're parallel in reality.
No, they're not. If you look at the sun, when have you ever in your entire lifetime looked up at the sun and seen parallel light rays coming off it? I'll tell you never, because that doesn't happen either. They're parallel in Muppet Vision representations like this, with the sun and the earth in the same view, and then you have parallel light rays coming off it. Right? To tangent points, sometimes off a flat earth when you've got a pizza pie sat on the top of a sphere earth that's redundant, that you'll get angles from, even though you denied them earlier. The point being that if you're going to claim that the light's coming in parallel, then you haven't got an explanation for eclipses, even in Muppet Vision. But the light being parallel is only in Muppet Vision, Brian. It's definitely not what we see. The lights from the sun don't do that. They just don't.
No, the globe explains the eclipses perfectly. How do you explain eclipses on your model?
I haven't made any claim about how eclipses would be explained. But what I have got is diagrams of how the heliocentric model explains them, and it contradicts your descriptions with parallel light rays.
You guys claim that the sun is 3,000 miles high.
I haven't made that
So how
claim.
does that work?
I didn't make that claim. I didn't make that claim. When did I make that claim? I didn't. Oh, if you're listening and you're a flat earth Muppet that makes that claim, this is where you'd be screwed. I didn't make that claim, Brian.
Sorry, I can't hear you. You're claiming it's 3,000 miles to the sun?
No, I haven't made that claim.
Oh,
But
you
see,
didn't hear
what
him
size
when he
it-
said
how far
he'd
away-
make that claim?
Well, I didn't hear
I
him
like
telling
your
me I've
balls,
made that
Brian.
claim. I heard him tell me I've made that claim, and I'm telling you I haven't.
How far away is the sun then on your flat earth?
I have no idea. I'm not using it to make any claims. Meanwhile, you're using it in a description of why why the moon most recently turned red.
Well, it seems to me that you're just attacking established globe earth scientific facts, and you don't even have your own distances to the sun.
I'm going to hope that you've
Oh,
done
no,
that
Brian,
intentionally.
isn't fair. You went into
Well, no,
science.
he's doing well. He's offered me an opening right at this point to say, okay, you've used the word science, and this would be a claimed phenomena, right? Moon turns red. That would be an eclipse. Why?
Yeah.
What's the cause? Science is establishing the cause of the effect empirically. So, what exactly was done experimentally to establish the cause of that red moon? What was varied? What's the cause?
Well, they took into account the amount of blockage that by the globe earth, which causes the shadow, and then they took into account earthshine and some other things, the scientific stuff, and that's how they know the color. It is.
Right, what's the independent variable, presumed cause of the effect, varied and manipulated to then induce the effect of the red moon? That was a long list of things that didn't sound very independent to me.
The movement of the globe.
Ah, I see. So independent variable, movement of presupposed spherical Earth debunked by Black Swan, effect, red moon. So how did you vary Earth as a sphere to induce the effect? Because you have to vary that as a researcher, Brian, to call it science.
Use time, Brian. Use time.
Yeah, time, exactly, Adam. Time. We just timed it. You know, these things are established. for
Just
thousands
wait,
of
whoa,
years.
whoa, whoa.
I don't know
Whoa,
why some
whoa,
flat
whoa,
earther
whoa, whoa.
thinks he
These
can just
things,
debunk this.
before you waffle. Just because Adam's come in and told you to use time. So you varied and manipulated time. So which one was it? Was it the TARDIS? Was it the DeLorean? Which one?
Well, we just waited, and then
That's
we
not
waited a
manipulating
while
time.
longer, and
No.
we measured between those two times of waiting. Yeah, am I
Wait,
being
Brian-
muted
Brian.
again, Nathan?
What did you say?
He
Am I
said, "Is he
being
being
muted
muted
again?"
No, you weren't. No, far from it. But it's a nice thing to throw out there. Very on topic. Yeah.
Wait. So Nathan, I see your diagram from earlier, and I want to raise it with two more diagrams that I put in Master B from NASA. You were talking about your parallel light rays from the sun.
I would
Maybe
like
this
to
will help you out, Brian.
Thank you.
I would like to point out that's where I had Professor Phil Bell, where he defined manipulate as count the amount of.
Count the amount. That sounds like maths.
Well, he said that manipulate means to choose to count the amount of. So if you choose to count the amount of stars, you've manipulated heaven.
I see.
Wow.
This is one of the guys that wants to boycott the nurses.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Right, Chocolate. You've put this up, so it's not really Brian's responsibility anymore. What are you saying? I covered this already. Muppet Vision. When do we see this?
I'm saying this counteracts your diagram that you had earlier. So you were asking Brian about parallel. Well, there you go.
And
Yeah,
when do we
Parallel light rays.
when do we see this?
Yeah, chocolate doesn't have doctor diagrams.
Diagrams. When do we see this?
It does
See it all the
say
time.
it does say it is a diagram. It says, note this diagram is not to scale. And fundamentally, this model in the diagram seems to be able to cope with both a solar and lunar eclipse with his parallel lines. So I'm thinking Chocolate's evidence is outstanding.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
do we?
See, this is what happens when someone gets the correct diagrams, Nathan.
Fascinating. So when do we see this?
But we see it all. We see it with satellites, and NASA sees it. You know, we see it all the time.
You see the sun, moon, and Earth lined up like this. Okay, let's see that then, rather than the diagram.
It's out there. All you have to do is search for it.
Okay, let's have it. You're the ones appealing to me. My response, the response to me saying, "When do we see this?" Your response is, "Well, we see it all the time." Okay, well, it should be dead easy for you to get.
Well,
You can
Well-
see it, but because of this, like say, NASA's put this is not to scale, so you can appreciate it. But if we were to put it to scale, it'd be so small you wouldn't be able to appreciate it. So that's why we've done that diagram instead of just the real picture.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly, Adam.
I mean,
let's
I
see it.
got this from NASA. They're the subject matter experts. I don't know how you would denounce what they're saying.
saying,
You know,
why is it that I
we
say
should
let's
trust them.
see something and I get told what we are justifying in terms of the scale of things?
Because
Okay.
you don't understand it.
Nobody wants to go and get me the image. You're justifying why I wouldn't appreciate the image if you did get it me. Fine. Where's the image
You
if we
wouldn't
had it?
understand
Not
all
that if
stuff,
I'm getting
Nathan.
rumpus.
It's a
Am I-
complicated stuff, globe stuff. You wouldn't understand it. Flat earthers wouldn't understand it.
Thank you for that interjection. That's really kind of you. So, even though you haven't presented it, and I wouldn't appreciate it if you did present it, where's the image that you haven't presented been taken from?
Well, it's taken from outside of Earth. You know, where they go, they go off out into space.
Space, like outer space.
Yeah, they go off into outer space and they take these images. I mean,
Oh, well, then,
complicated stuff.
then I can say categorically that there is no image. That's why you were reluctant to offer it up when I asked you to show it me in reality with a picture or where we see it, because there is no outer space. If there was, then we'd all be dead. There'd be no gas to breathe. The gas would fill the space. The gas we're breathing?
Wait. Are you asking for an image or a photograph? Because I could probably find you an image somewhere depicting this nonsense, but photograph, then don't ask me that.
I did ask for it, and I was told there was loads of them. And then I was told, even if you did provide it, I wouldn't appreciate it because of the scale. That's why it says, note, this diagram is not to scale. So I said, okay, well, notwithstanding that I wouldn't appreciate it, and notwithstanding that you say there's loads of them, and notwithstanding that you haven't provided it to me, where would that image that you haven't provided, there's loads of them, and isn't to scale that I'd appreciate, taken from? You say space, outer space, which isn't a real place. It's like saying, well, they're in Narnia. Well, then they definitely don't exist then, because there is no outer space.
Oh, here we go, Bri. Here we go. You know, the next thing he's going to be saying, he's going to be trying to claim that the second law of thermodynamics applies to the Earth.
It does. It's a natural law.
Yeah. Like some flat earther would even understand the laws of thermodynamics.
And as if
They'll
they
be
apply
honest.
to something as big as the Earth. That's just
What
ridiculous.
the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
There is a macroverse, a microverse, and then the world we experience.
Imagine,
The
Neil.
macroverse-
Neil needs to keep kept up with what's going on because it has descended quite far into farce, which is reasonable. So earlier it was explained, I can't remember who gave the example. Imagine the nurse analogy when we're talking about the nurses in the nut house. And the nurses are being told that their patients want to boycott them. Well, they call nurse. Come and meet me outside so I can beat you up. Right? We're talking about them. Then take that analogy one step further, Neil, and we're all in the coffee room having a little laugh about the stupid nonsense that the madhouse patients say. That's what we're doing. So that's what's going on. Welcome
Got
to
it.
Penguin. Hold on, just a quick shout out to Gematria Wombat. Wow, what a name. Thank you for joining as a member, Gematria Wombat. Sorry, I didn't mean that to break up the flow so much. Yeah, we're in the nut
Is
house,
the
we're
live
having a
figure
coffee,
yet?
we're just taking the mick out of the people and the stupid shit they say, Neil. While smoking a fag and drinking coffee and going, yeah.
Okay.
Is Elijah here yet?
Yeah, Elijah's here, he's been here a while.
Oh, good.
I
Hello,
hyped him
gentlemen.
up on the QE show, but he has a question that could be a housekeeping question.
Ooh, let's hear it.
Well, let's preempt it.
Or did you beef that up then?
Hold on, Adam. So, in the
Not
last
yet.
show, I was told in the pre-show that Eli had got a question that had been put to John and a number of others, and the way it was phrased to me was, it made me feel disgusted because I couldn't overcome it in any way that was reasonable, or words to that effect. So, it certainly piqued my interest, Eli. Mike's all yours, if you're there.
Well, I don't know if I can summarize it, but we were having a conversation about water levels establishing a horizontal. And I was met with, objections saying, well, you can't bring that into an argument. And I said, why would I? Like, it's a propositional statement. It's something that you experience. And it just kept going back to, well, but because of what horizontal means, you kind of can't say it because it presupposes that would be any length, I guess, over any area. And so if you were to apply it to the Earth, X, Y, Z. And I kept saying, why would I need to do that other than what is practical for an area on the Earth that I'm going to be using to establish, a level foundation for building? Like, why would I argue about the Earth as a whole at all? Well, the only people that are trying to prove that level is equidistant to the center of the sphere, the people that are begging the question in the first place. So I asked, well, is there any evidence that level is equidistant from the center of the Earth?
That's beautiful. You're right. because it's their positive claim that's extraordinary. So, in terms of practical application, using a water level to establish level is a given. It's an axiom. You don't have to argue it. It's not an agree-disagree statement. So therefore, what you're left with when it comes to that assertion and when it's debated, they need to make an extraordinary claim, which is that no, water level actually moves to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth debunked by the Black Swan. So is there any evidence that water level moves to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? That is absolutely beautiful.
Brilliant.
What you're
Say
dropping
it
it.
again, Eli. 'Cause
What you're
Nathan
dropping
ruined it.
Sorry.
It's the No, because this was getting. We just before I went on flat sides, they were throwing it at me. How do we make it? And you just rattled it off there, and I felt as dirty as John did Friday night. So do it again. 'Cause that is brilliant.
Eli,
You nailed it.
can you repeat it? Because I got it wrong.
We went through a couple of iterations. It was, is there any evidence that all horizontals are equidistant? But I just didn't like the wording because I don't know. I wanted to make it as simple as possible without. There was something about saying it like that or saying it like, is there any evidence that level is equivalent to equidistance on a sphere? Well, technically, yes. Like if you're going to presuppose it. So the way that that's worded is wrong, in my opinion. So then I just said, okay, well, given that the Earth is what they claim, well, is there any evidence that level is equidistant with the center of the Earth? Because they already
That's the best bit. Equidistant from the centre. Very clever. Very clever.
Is there any evidence that level is equidistant from the centre of a sphere?
You need to ask this
from the Earth, because from a sphere, yes. From the Earth, no.
Oh, that is so great.
No, because you've still got them. Because level is still not level on any sphere. If it's equidistant, it's not level. It just becomes equidistant from the centre of the sphere. It's not level. That's why it's good. Because they have to presuppose everything and still face the reality of the contradiction in the definition.
Well, John,
It's just a dirty film, no matter which way you go with it.
John, did you want to read the definition that you had sent me?
But surely we must give Bev some credit because he's banging on about this for a very long time.
Yes,
right.
And I said that I would. I said, yo, I'm going to give Bev credit because, just upon hearing what Chocolate was saying about, I like how he razzles the ballers by not really making any claims. He can just say, well, water is level, the end. And they're like, look, no, level is this, level is that, and yada, yada, yada. And so, there were, a couple of us that kind of got into an argument about it. And it just seemed reasonable to say that, well, if we're going to apply it, well, you're applying it to the Earth, and then you're telling me to prove that I have to prove that it's not equidistant from the center of the sphere over 3 miles, 10 miles, whatever. And I'm like, well, that sounds like a burden of proof reversal fallacy off of handing me a begging the question fallacy.
Exactly what it is.
That's a very good summary of
Has
exactly
he
what it is.
explained yet what he thinks is wrong with the Black Swan argument?
It's not that. Hold on, Arwin. It's more that it leaves them in a position where they're saying to you, or if they are saying to you, prove this axiom true. You're like, I'm not in a position to need to. It's an axiom. It holds true always. It's a principle. I don't have to argue about this. What's that? When you beg the question of a sphere Earth, that level moves to the centre of it. Well, that sounds like a lot of begging the question fallacies that you need to justify, not me.
Right. And the good thing about it is it's dealing with a positive claim that globe earthers make to Bev. And that's where he needs the credit for asking, for making the statement initially, for them to respond with that. And that's where a lot of this question is dealing, is in the responses Bev gets.
Yeah, so he's laid his neck out to get this, to have it be nuanced by us. So yeah, credit where credit's due to Bev. with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who joined as a member, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, smashed the super chat and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley once again. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Let me tell you why I disagree. It's not that I formulated the question. It was my explanation of what I thought Bev was saying. But so basically my question is off the back of an understanding of what he's been saying this entire time. It's just we've rejected that was adequate to defeat the ballers for some reason.
No.
I
think it was. You're right. It's from a conversation Bev had, but you're not addressing. They're making the ballers are making a positive claim to Bev, and you have formulated your question in response to that, which I think is genius. And not that I want to take away credit from Bev, but I think you still deserve credit for it as well.
Oh, no. I hope that didn't come across as the way I was suggesting, because I rounded it out by saying credit to Bev. No, on the contrary, to nuance this sort of stuff it's the same principle as giving BLMSB 69 all of the credit. You wouldn't dream of it, but you still give him credit. Well, in the same scenario, you've got somebody who's been fighting this battle on this exact subject for years. That's Bev. And then the subject takes a bit of a turn, subtle though it may be, because of somebody's input. In this case, Eli's. Well, yeah, that's where the bulk of the credit goes, because it's going to become a housekeeping question. So that's not because of Bev, but still credit where credit's due for Bev.
How it all started. Sorry. Go on, Nate.
No, just saying it's all Eli. Eli gets the credit. Acknowledge Bev, but it's Eli's. End the story.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't want to sound like a contrarian, because it will be like the third consecutive show day where I'm like, no.
I'll do it for you.
Orwin, can't you just settle the argument and claim you figured this out 2 weeks ago?
Yes. What exactly? What are we talking about? Sorry, I was a little distracted.
Actually, Eli, you stole Brian's thought. That's what it was.
Now, what are we talking about?
A potential or housekeeping question?
Have you got
No, we're talking
any
about
evidence?
the excellence of Eli.
Go ahead, Adam.
Orwin, have you got any evidence that horizontal can be equidistant to the center point of a sphere?
That's not the question.
That's not the question. Level.
Well,
Horizontal level. Sorry. There you go. I've bastardized it now.
And all right, I'll ask you again.
Well, no, explain that nuance then, because that
should be
important.
is equidistant from the center of
okay,
it.
just for the record, I'm just gonna let this all roll out and not answer the question. Hope you're forgetting that you're actually asking me a question. Please continue.
I'll explain the nuance to Arwen and why I would word it in the way that I would word it. So first, I'm going to explain why I'm rejecting what Adam said. Because if I'm holding a sphere and I ask the question, is there any evidence that level can be equidistant from the center of a sphere? Well, I mean, I'm holding a sphere, and if I'm going to maintain the same distance around that whole ball, I guess I could consider that to be a kind of yes in the reimagining of the word level. But I'm not talking about a model or an idea or a sphere that I can hold in my hand that I can technically go, well, yeah, this fits my description of level. So instead, I asked, is there any evidence that level is equidistant from the center of Earth, this Earth, the Earth that we're standing on?
Is there any evidence that level is equidistant from the center of Earth?
Okay, I'm working on it. First, I have to. Well,
I just want to.
I have to actually look up the word equidistant to be a little bit more precise.
Equal
It's
distance.
like a housekeeping
It
question.
just means
Equidistant.
just
Yeah,
means
well, yeah, it's in the word literally.
yeah.
Okay.
It just means equal distance.
Exactly.
So level at an equal distance of the center of the Earth.
Yeah,
why
level
you
2.
chewing on it, Ollie?
Yeah, of course it
it's got
is.
that quality that all of the housekeeping questions have got, and you can hear it. It doesn't matter which way we paraphrase it. It's got that quality that makes the question in and of itself a contradiction in terms if it were to be answered. Right? Any evidence that you can get an elevation angle from a curve? Well, obviously not. That's a contradiction in terms. It's nonsensical because you can't do that. So the answer is no. Right? It's got that magic property that housekeeping questions need, that X factor, where even that you've described it as it making you feel a bit dirty. Well, that's kind of, that's the X factor the housekeeping questions have all got, isn't it?
Well,
So,
I
Eli,
don't see it. I just
Sounds like
answered
a
yes.
a bit of, just on the question.
Level equidistant to
No.
center of the Earth. Yeah, of course. They're all in the radius value.
Explain.
We're done. So Eli, I asked, just for the distinguish, why are we using level and not horizontal? Will you just clarify that for your?
We never actually settled on it. I'm just choosing level right now because specifically the word level is mostly used. You're
I'll
not really
explain.
thinking about the horizon or horizontal, or you could apply it to the horizontal as well. There's no particular reason other than just the
You can't apply it to horizontal. No, you can't apply it to horizontal because their claim is that level and horizontal are not the same thing.
Correct.
That's the thing.
Correct. They're saying level is curved. Level is equidistant to the center of a sphere Earth. That's what they're saying level is.
But is there any evidence of that?
Yeah, they say exactly, because they say horizontal is just a concept. It's not really a thing.
It's only apparent.
Just one sec, Arwen. Just one sec. Plus, they define it. Hold on, just one sec. They go to Merriam-Webster and define it that way. I had it over dinner this weekend. So, a few mates around dinner, guy from the computer shop's talking. One of them brings that up. Exactly that. Here's the definition in Merriam-Webster. Level is equidistant to the center of a sphere Earth. So they'll just bring up that Merriam-Webster definition.
That definition is 3 or 4 down, and it's contradicted by the next line underneath it. It's contradicted by either the line above it or the line underneath it. So it can't be used. It can't be used officially because it's contradicted within that same page.
Right, because eye level, right, it's got a level in it. So how can eye level be the baseline and curving?
Well, it's not effective as a housekeeping question then, in my opinion, because you can literally answer it. Now, of course, that answer, that is a straightforward yes, will then eventually lead to complications, but that doesn't make for an effective housekeeping question because you can answer it.
You can't answer it yes to an evidence question. You can't just say yes.
Yeah, so then it's not an effective housekeeping question because you can just...
Arwen, everyone stop. Listen to what John's just said to you, Arwen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you say any evidence they committed the crime, yes.
See how nonsensical it is to say yes?
Yep.
Meanwhile, this is probably the X factor. This is beautiful, you and Arwen, by the way. If you say any evidence that he committed the crime, no. That works perfectly now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trap. It's a ball-tard trap. That's the only way I can describe it.
This
Does that definition say from the center of a sphere, or does it say from the surface of the Earth?
Surface of the Earth.
So
Okay.
what if the surface of the Earth is actually flat?
Exactly, Chocolate. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need to speak about a sphere at all.
No,
We're
it
just
actually,
assuming.
it actually uses the word curvature of the Earth or curve of the Earth in that definition that they're talking about.
So how I would have
Does it
answered
really?
The word curve is in.
I've just tried to look up the
guys,
Merriam-Webster
I'm
bit.
trying to talk. Please.
Eli, just share that.
Who do you think
That's
you
on
are? The
screen.
guy who came up with this or something? Can you keep it down, Eli?
We're just looking for the bit that would mean it might be better to use horizontal rather than level. But there is another contradiction in the Merriam-Webster. I know, calm down. It says level, a line or surface that cuts perpendicularly all plumb lines that it meets and hence would everywhere coincide with the surface of still water. Now that is contrary to the question, and it's positive assertion that horizontal is level and that it corresponds to the surface of still water, not equidistant, because it's got the geometric definition of plumbs and perpendiculars, and it's referenced to the surface of the water.
Well, could I say something here?
Well, I
Really
mean,
don't. Just so Merriam, even if you've got the other definition that you can use Merriam-Webster to counteract it, I can't find the equidistant. But I do see that they reference the surface of water as flat and perpendicular to a plumb line, which in of itself denies the ball. Hold on.
That's kind of why I asked the question.
I agree with all of this, and Brian's probably going to do. I'm actually trying to answer Arwen, which has nothing to do with any of this, which is okay in this case. Like Arwen. So what I was going to say to you is, I was going to ask you go on, right? Because if you go on, you're going to commit a fallacy. That's the point.
Why?
Well, it's not why. Go on and see if you do.
Well, what if I just say yes and I leave it to that? What then?
You can't.
Nobody's obligating me to elaborate.
Well,
Yes,
after you
and
say
the
yes,
question is.
after you say yes, there's evidence. You have to provide the evidence. Obviously.
Technically, you
Do
could.
they?
Well, not.
I'll cite the
No, I
Merriam.
want to hold on.
There
Everyone,
you
stop a
go.
second. Everyone, stop. I'm quite fascinated to hear what Arwen reacts to this with, right? Because typically Arwen can go through the motions of all of the various different aspects of a baller's response, and what we've got so far from the people who've mentalised this, if that's the word, they've said it makes them feel dirty. So I'm intrigued to see how Arwen reacts to this. Go ahead, Arwen.
I'm ignoring all the dirtiness. I'm just going to say, yeah, of course. It's right there. Look it up.
Yeah. So are you just going to run off down the street after saying yes, or are you going to continue to answer the question?
But no, but that was already
But
a
I already
fallacy.
answered the question.
Okay, stop. Stop. Right, just bear in mind, this is Baldwin, right? If the limitations of his understanding at this point are exercise Baller's right to say yes, stick by it, and say he's not running away, he will do that indefinitely. Right, and now I've spotted that after him doing it once.
Indeed.
You guys can do this 16 more times, or just leave Arwen a day or two, and I'm sure he'll come back with something better next time we do this.
But that's good. That
Well,
Arwen's already at that point of I'm going to use that tactic because it's not obvious the way out, is it, Arwen?
But we haven't
Well,
pointed
it's-
out that
look, the
he's
whole issue-
already committed a fallacy, which
Okay.
is what I said would be the next thing that he would do.
What fallacy did he commit?
Appealing to
Yeah, I didn't.
appealing to the definition.
That's not a fallacy. That's the Socratic
What the
method.
hell?
No, he's appealing to the dictionary itself, not the definition, because the definition is not what he's looking for as we've just read it.
Parts of
No,
it
he's
were.
just gone Socratic on us because the question says any evidence. So he's saying, yes, there is. End of. I've answered it fully as far as I'm concerned with regards to the meaning in the question. The question doesn't say
Exactly.
any evidence and would you please list it? It just says any evidence. So I suppose you see arguments resorted to that Socratic argument of being right on that.
I know that's very unballer
on.
of me to do that, but I am.
It's not very
Hold on.
unballer
Then
win.
all
Perfectly baller
all
win.
the housekeeping questions are now invalid if you're going to accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they aren't, because you cannot look up gas pressure without a container, right? They have
So
a
tell people
ridiculous
to look
story
up.
that is like
Do you tell
totally
people
false.
to look up? Do you tell people to look up gas pressure without a container, or do you ask the question any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
Which
Yes.
is yes, because
Yes.
gravity.
Gravity.
Yeah, but Baldwin
yes.
just saying yes doesn't mean anything, because all you have to do then is say, okay, can you present it? Your evidence of this. And what are you going to do? Present this evidence. You're going to, how are you going to present that? How are you going to present evidence that level is equidistant to the center of Earth?
You
No,
can't.
but that's not even
because
what
you
the
can't get
definition
there.
says. You just
Can I
can't
now
do it.
respond, since I am actually the one responding here to this predicament, not you, Elijah?
Make
Okay.
way, make
So you
way.
can't.
Arwin
You
will.
can't measure it, but it is very logical to assume that if you're on a ball, that is just the case. That's it.
That's why John said it makes you feel dirty. And just one second, Eli, we will let you back into the conversation. But yeah, that's why John's saying it makes you feel dirty. You have to concede your assumption to make the response in that regard. So Arwin's just taken the next step that you guys, very well predicted, by the way, including Eli, would have to take next. If they're going to do it, they're going to have to go, yeah, when I assume the Earth's a sphere, then I assume that the justification, or even in this definition, meets that specific requirement. You're like, yeah, but you've just told me
Right.
that you're making that assumption to do it.
But it's just a geometric conception, right? It's just a geometric pointer. Like, oh yeah, the level is parallel to the center of the Earth, and yeah, of course.
Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, if you're assuming it's a sphere. But,
Exactly.
also to that, where in this definition says level is equidistant from the center of the Earth, which you said yes to?
What? I don't know. I'm not looking it up.
But
You look
just
it up, Eli.
said, look, it's
What's
right
your problem?
there.
What the hell?
You said,
Reverse
look,
burden
it's
of
right
proof?
there.
Why are you
just
dumb
said,
flat earther?
Look, it's right there.
You look it up, Eli. Totally reasonable. Yes, Arwin. I agree.
No, Nathan. Arwin said it's right there in the definition that Adam had on.
Because
screen.
you read it out.
Yeah, so
No,
go
I
look it
said-
up.
No. We all said it has. No, it doesn't anywhere in there say it has anything to do with level being equidistant from the center of anything. We
Yeah.
all agreed that that's not there.
No, we
Arwin
did.
said,
We
look,
did. We did all agree to that.
horizontal
But
then. I think that's the
Eli,
word.
hold on, Arwin. Eli's saying, Arwin is saying to you, Eli, yeah, but it is in the other definitions. Just because he said the, it doesn't mean he's talking about the one that you've just debunked. Other definitions
No,
will back him up. You need to go and look them up. That's what Arwin said.
Yeah, pretty much. Ball win, by the way.
Firing a fallacy again.
And I come at this from a different angle.
Is that
You'll need
that
a
a
flat earth
version
then.
of proof of reversal fallacy there?
What about this?
Yes.
Is there any evidence that level is not horizontal?
Now you've got to have the equidistant ball bet. That's the
Well, see, I'm cutting that out from what I'm saying. Just hear me out. I mean, it might not go anywhere, Bob. I'm cutting that out to see, because what can be produced is what that definition that's about three or four times down on Merriam-Webster, that doesn't reference the center of the Earth. It just references, I think, or curve. And I can then reference spirit levels and water levels.
I've
That
got that on
create-
screen, Brian. So
create Just 1 second. One more.
Just a
I'll be very
reference,
quick.
yeah.
I'll be very quick. I'll be very quick. So my evidence is that water level is a tool that establishes a horizontal plane of reference, as do spirit levels. And I have the spirit level that's used within the aeronautical aeronautical sextant. So what would be considered evidence? Would it be one definition that I can contradict with other parts of that same Merriam-Webster page and get other definitions from other places, or would evidence be the water level and the spirit level? That
Well, I can answer this. Hold on a sec. I can answer this. Because the response to is there any evidence that horizontal is not level, right? Or however you phrased it, I'm paraphrasing.
I said
Just because that answer
level is not horizontal.
Right, that's fine. Just because the answer can be no without addressing whether you're on a sphere or not is the problem, and changing the question in that way.
Well, I'm not saying that Eli's question shouldn't be used, or I'm just saying as a question to state, is there any evidence that level is not horizontal, can only be met with, yes, there is evidence. And then show it us then.
No, because
then just 1 second. Then they might try and bring up that level is equidistant from the center of a sphere, and then you could say, how have you validated this, or is there any evidence that level is equidistant from the center of a sphere?
Right.
The answer to that appears to be no, guys. This is what just to pull it back to Eli's question. Now, Arwin answered yes, right, as if what Nathan had said with the Merriam-Webster quote, but that's not. Brian, you're right. Look, the bit that's got thingy doesn't reference equidistant, having no part higher than another, which in itself is a contradiction of what's about to follow, because it's conforming to the curvature of the liquid parts of the Earth's surface. But there's no mention of equidistant, so you can't answer yes unless you've got something other than what we thought was in Merriam-Webster.
Okay,
Well, what if that's the
Guys, I've
right
got a
there?
very important technical note. Sorry, just for my own benefit, I'm really sorry to break up the flow with this. There was distortion coming from you guys in G+, so I just want to make a mental note of what I've done to change it and hopefully solve it. So I've changed virtual cable A from WMA encoding to KS encoding. So voice meter cable A for G+ is now KS instead of WMA, just for my own benefit. Don't need to know what that means. Just carry on.
I assume that was for future Nathan.
Future Nathan, you can thank me later.
I wanted to correct my Baldwin answer because I was wrong. Yeah, there is no place where the horizon is exactly equidistant to the center of the Earth, because the Earth isn't an exact sphere; it's pear-shaped. I forgot.
Well, let me get back to Brian's point, because the question doesn't address the presupposition of a sphere, right? Then all they have to do is say, no, there's no evidence that level and horizontal aren't the same thing. And then you have to ask further questions to get them to that dirty feeling point. That's why I liked Elijah's question.
I agree. Elijah's question leaves you with only a couple of options. Present evidence that forces you to, in a dirty, horrible way, admit that you're assuming everything you state when you prove it, which in itself isn't proving it, and you'll know it when you start begging the question in your answer. Or you state the obvious, which is no, you can't. But just saying yes, it's perfect that Arwin's done that immediately, because it highlights the absurdity of that, which seems on the surface to have a yes-no answer to it. Any evidence is the question. So if you're going to say yes, you've got to provide it. But if the answer's no, that's perfectly tolerable, because there isn't any evidence that level is equidistant to the centre of a sphere Earth.
Right, because it shouldn't exactly be like that, because the Earth isn't exactly a sphere. It's pear-shaped, so it's slightly off.
That doesn't help you. That doesn't help you with level, though. The question is in regards to level.
Well, my
But
question
are you
was,
saying that it is then, like even being pear-shaped, that it is all still very much perfectly centric?
No,
Basically?
No, because
it is a globe claim that level is equidistant to the center of a sphere Earth. That is their requirement for a ball.
Well, that's very weird because it shouldn't be, because the Earth isn't exactly a sphere. It's
Not my problem.
pear-shaped.
That
So it
that-
shouldn't be. That's an error then.
That doesn't sound like an us problem, though, does it, Arwin?
Well, talk for yourself. I'm
but-
ballin' right now.
question-
Specifically because one of the things ballers like to talk about is plumb lines and divergent. What?
They say that they're running. They don't say they're running parallel. What's the words that they use? Parallel zeniths or something? Divergent
Divergent.
zeniths. That's the one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which also that's my question addresses all of that.
Yeah, it does.
Well, let me put a suggestion to you. Adam, if you could put that back up again. Oh, it's gone. Adam had it. Maybe Adam's busy. He's left. Well, I don't see why it would be unreasonable to contact Merriam-Webster and state that they have a contradiction within their definition of level.
Oh, make it a show. Make it a show. Call them right now live.
Yeah, I don't see why, because I mean, we're not changing something that isn't true. We're trying to get them to define it correctly, because it's not defined correctly, and we can show them the contradiction within their own page and contradictions from other reputable dictionaries, like Cambridge and whatever else. Because it's true.
That would be special.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry?
John.
That would be a special, wouldn't it?
I just hear an okey doke in that definition. What was it that definition said, Adam? In relation to the curvature of water?
Equidistant from the surface of Earth, conforming to the curvature of water.
No, that's not what it says.
That's not what
Having
it
no
says.
part higher than another, conforming to the curvature of the liquid parts of the Earth's surface. There's a contradiction right there. I pointed this out about 7 years ago.
Well, what if there is no contradiction? It's just a few okey doke, because
Right.
there
There
is
is a
no curvature to the surface of the water.
But that
There is
basically
a
means that
contradiction.
Merriam-Webster made an error.
Hello.
There is a contradiction. Having no part higher than another, right? That has to deal with elevation, right? Conforming to the curvature. As soon as you say curvature, you immediately invoke elevation change. There's the contradiction.
There you go.
Exactly.
I know exactly what you mean. I'm just saying I see it as an okey doke because there is no curvature to the surface of water. So it's like it's an okey doke. Basically what it is.
It is, but
Okey
an okey doke within the definition is just an error when it has a contradiction in it.
Yeah, but that's why I call it an okey doke, because with how it's used to trick people into thinking that both these definitions, which have a contradiction, are the same thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe we will contact Merriam-Webster and point out that their definition of level has a contradiction within it. I mean, not me.
It'd be an interesting conversation.
It seems like an error even from a baller perspective, is what I'm saying. So it's not just from our perspective as flat earthers.
Right.
So yeah,
It might just be
worth
an
it.
error full stop.
Maybe.
It might be whoever wrote that. It was just an error. It's just someone put it in as an error. They were tired or they're working or distracted. Simple as.
Maybe. With that, though, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ Panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, smashing the PayPal link and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.